Welcome to this episode of Organic Living Culture. Today I'm going to be sharing my birth stories. We had home births with both of our kids, and I'm just going to share the first one with you real quick here. Our daughter, Elsie, was born at home, and we had a midwife attending. Her name is Debbie Perry. She's a great midwife, absolutely amazing in every way. And we had a lot. It was a good birth. It was a marathon. It was 24 hours of active labor. We did have a doula. I highly recommend having a doula if you are birthing at home for the first time. It's just nice to have somebody there to support Dad as he's coaching Mom through the labor. And if you ever need anybody to run to the store, we had to have our doula run to the store for Gatorade, because 18 hours into the labor, I was getting a little dehydrated and I needed some more intense hydration. So she ran to the store and got some Gatorade for us. It was awesome. Heidi Maythaler was my doula, and just a little shout out to her. She was amazing. She stayed with us for all 24 hours of active labor. Oh my goodness. she was awesome. So Elsie's labor was really, really long. We did have a birth tub, and that was nice. After about 20 hours of labor, I was like, you know what, let's blow up the tub. I would like to get in it. Let's fill it up with some nice warm water. And I actually gave birth in the tub to Elsie. It was really relaxing. The entire birth, the overall feeling of the whole experience was one of peace and joy, and it was very, very relaxed. It was great. It was just myself, my husband, our doula, Heidi Maythaler, our midwife, Debbie Perry, and her assistant, Abby, and it was phenomenal. I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything else. It was so great to be able to give birth in my own home and not have a bunch of people rushing in and out, and to just have it be very relaxed, very low-key, and surrounded by people that I love and that I know love me, and it was just such a joyful, wonderful experience. I cannot imagine doing it any other way, even though if something had gone wrong or we needed to go to the hospital, I would have been totally okay with that, and so would have our midwife. Something that a lot of people have questions about is, what if something goes wrong? Well, if something goes wrong, you get transported to the hospital, and that's where you get taken care of, and that's where your baby can be taken care of too, is at the hospital. Because that was a concern of mine as well. I mean, occasionally in birth there's something that does go wrong. So that's something that every midwife will say is, if anything even looks like it's going wrong, we transport, So that's kind of a nice rest assured thing on that end. And then Ethan, our second born, his labor was completely different. It was a sprint. I was expecting at the very least, 3 hours of labor. And no, our midwife was expecting at least 3 hours of labor. Didn't happen. After 24 hours of active labor with Elsie, I had an hour and a half total labor with Ethan. And so, and with Elsie, she was posterior. She was face up. And so I had a lot of back labor. I had a lot of the contractions. Let's say this is the uterus. Okay, the contractions usually focus around the bottom of the uterus. Well, with Elsie, they went all the way up and down the uterus, and I could feel them going up and then coming back down. So with Ethan, they were centered around the bottom of the uterus, and that felt so different to me. It really threw me off. I didn't know where in the labor I was. I knew it wasn't early labor. I knew I was in active labor, but I didn't know where I was at in active labor. I didn't know how intense things were getting until he was almost born. Literally, like 5 minutes before he was born, I was like, okay, let's call the midwife and tell her to come. 20 minutes after labor started, we called her and just let her know, hey, we're in labor, you might want to get your things together, but don't bother coming over yet because we just started. And she was like, okay, sounds good. And so, I was walking around the house, laboring, trying to find a comfortable position to labor in, or a, effective one, something. And I wasn't really finding anything. So I was just kind of walking around, have a contraction, okay, stop, relax, okay. They were pretty intense, but they felt totally different. So I didn't, like I said, it threw me off. So I finally got to the point where I couldn't make it through a contraction without John being there with me. And that was when I turned to him and said, you need to call the midwife and tell her to get here now. And he did after the next contraction. And after that, there were 4 more contractions, and Ethan was born. And John delivered him because the midwife was 5 minutes away still. So we had a totally unplanned, medically unassisted, we wanted our midwife to be there. Really, truly, we did. We did not want to have a medically unassisted birth, but that's what happened. And sometimes that's what happens. If we would have been planning to go to the hospital to have birth, we would have had him en route or outside our front door or somewhere in the living room. I'm not sure, but it wouldn't have been at the hospital. I can guarantee you that, because things were moving along way too quickly, and I didn't know it until it was too late. So next time we will definitely be telling the midwife, hey, you need to come over first thing, right when we know labor's starting. So that's my home birth story. Pretty fun, pretty different home births. I mean, every birth is different. Every baby is different. Every mommy is different. So if you have relatives that have had long labors, you might not have a long labor. If you've had long labors in the past, this one might be shorter. Like it was for me, really short. So second labor. So those are my stories. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Organic Living Culture.